What is May Day? And what's with all the red flags and the marching and the singing and the chanting and the whatnot in the street? Well, I'll tell you. Now, since the time of the Roman Republic, May festivals have been these fun-filled pagan holidays marking the beginning of summer. Ta-da! They called it Florolia. It's a very beautiful word. Lots of singing and dancing, theater performances, and music. Just fun, fun, fun. Coming at you fun. Also, every 3 years, there was an extra special May festival celebrating Dionysus and Aphrodite. And that one was called Mayauma. Also known as the Orgies. So you can guess what that one was about. Let's just say that festival was a very full-bodied celebration of the fertility of the earth until you were exhausted. In a good way. Now, centuries later, the northern Europeans, up where it's cold, kept the tradition going, but with a more regional flavor. Now, it's still about the beginning of summer, but in Germany and Scandinavia, it was about the last of the snows melting. Everybody getting a chance to get out of the house finally. And it was also about banishing evil with love. It's a nice thought. For the Celts in Scotland, Wales, and Ireland, however, it was still very much about the sexy part. Sex, 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 coming at ya. I mean, sure, yeah, it was still, hi, summer, but also, let's run into the woods in the middle of the night, get naked, light a bonfire, and get some May Day busy. Because, it's the way the gods wanted it. The English, on the other hand, they ended up with Morris dancers and a maypole. Two least sexy things they could think of. I mean, maybe if you squint hard enough, you can make the maypole into something, maybe. But with all those ribbons wrapped really tightly around it, just makes the whole thing seem a little painful and even more repressed. Oh, and then the Catholics came along and they took all the sex out of it. They made it about the Virgin Mary. Kind of the opposite of, an orgy in the woods. But interestingly, they also made May Day the holy day of Saint Joseph, the patron saint of workers. Nowadays, May Day is a big international holiday, but not for the Virgin Mary, and unfortunately not for the bonfire orgies, but for another reason. See, around the world, on May 1st, every May 1st, millions of men, women, and children, they flood the streets of towns and little villages, waving flags and joyously hurling songs to the sky, laughing, marching, cheering, chanting all over the globe. Masses of people join for one day across national, racial, religious, and linguistic boundaries to celebrate the greatest of supranational secular holidays, International Workers' Day, May Day. And they will have this global celebration of working class pride everywhere, except in the United States. Which, of course, it's ironic, since May Day as a workers' holiday was created as a celebration of the struggle of American workers. See, International Workers' Day is a commemoration of the Haymarket Massacre in Chicago. It's that way. In 1886. When Chicago police fired on and killed workers during a general strike for the 8-hour day. And to memorialize the resulting riot and the execution of 4 anarchists sentenced to death for not successfully discouraging someone they did not know from throwing a bomb. That's right. For all the left-hating, red-baiting nutbags who enjoy the benefits of the 8-hour day, May Day commemorates the leftists who died protesting for it. But the real question is, why is this day so ignored here, in the land that inspired it? In fact, our government went so far in 1958 as to declare May 1st National Loyalty Day, which makes anyone officially participating in a Workers' Day rally officially as a disloyal American. Yeah. Republicans and Democrats, the very people who say they celebrate hardworking Americans, went that far to divorce hardworking Americans from the international holiday that celebrates them. You'd think they were trying to avoid the concept of the working class. Oh, and working class, that just means you work for a living. That's it. To pay your bills, you have a job. As opposed to those who could, if they chose to, live on their investments or inheritance or income property. I mean, if you could do that, if your money or capital could provide you with a reasonable living, you'd be a capitalist. I mean, that's what the word means. A lot of people think capitalist means to work hard. Actually, it means the opposite. It specifically means you don't have to work at all. I mean, that's the goal. Capitalist means that somewhere, in some business office or coal mine or coffee shop or factory, someone else is working hard so that the capitalist's investment in that business or coal company or coffee shop chain or factory will pay dividends. That's how they make money, from their capital investments and someone else's work. Oh, some capitalists do work very hard, but they don't have to. They don't have to in order to keep a roof over their heads or food on their table. They just do it to accumulate more money, more capital. If, however, you must work, if you are someone else's employee in any way to pay your bills, you're a worker. If you own a business where you must work to cover your basic living expenses, you're a worker owner. If you own your own labor and can take it from place to place, like a gardener or a plumber or a lawyer or an actor, then you are an artisan worker. Independent contractor, worker. Doctor, lawyer, butcher, baker, crotchless panty maker, workers. Even the cops that beat up strikers for striking are themselves workers, while simultaneously being foot soldiers of capitalist and fascist oppression. Worker, worker, worker. The vast majority of Americans, workers. You are a worker if you must work so that someone else will pay you, whereby you can then afford the necessities of life. But Americans have been shamed into believing that an admission of belonging to the working class is tantamount to admitting failure. That workers are only workers because they're not willing to work harder to succeed. They aren't upwardly mobile. And that someone who confesses to be a proud member of the working class is evidently too stupid to get rich in the land of easy plenty. If you listen closely, you'll notice that very few politicians of either party actually talk about the working class anymore. What they do talk about is the middle class, a term that doesn't even have an agreed upon definition in the United States. Why not? Because it's a fiction. Like, okay, in England, middle class is supposed to be people they're well off, but they're not aristocrats. So over there, it's more of an attitude, a suck-up aspiration to the blue bloods above and a disdain for the filthy Dickensian workers below. Now, we, here in the United States, we don't have an aristocracy. We do have oligarchs, but they don't have titles yet. Anyway, so here, the idea of a middle class is even more of an invention, created to divide the workers by getting some to identify with the boss upstairs rather than with their co-workers on the line. Middle class is just a worker with a bigger debt, and who has been brainwashed into thinking that belonging to the working class is somehow bad. And because they control the media and the political machine, this message from the capitalists that being a worker is something to be ashamed of, that your boss is your best friend, that the union is the enemy, and it is better somehow nobler to dream of individual riches than to identify with your fellow workers and strive to improve the lot of your entire class, that message is the one fed to us in every magazine, on every news feed, on every streaming service, and emblazoned on every billboard and all across the web. I mean, forget that you're a few paychecks away from ruin. Forget that any power and protection you do have comes not from the kindness of your boss, but from the hard-earned labor victories. Forget that you have more in common with any worker anywhere in the world on the other side of the planet than you do with any member of the American capitalist aristocracy. Please forget all of that. Just identify as middle class and do not identify with the working class. Oh, for those of you who say that all of this smacks of socialism, remember, socialism simply means that the workers should control the means of production, that the wealth of the nation should benefit the working class first, and one person, one vote. That's it. I mean, there's different flavors of socialism, but those are the basic ingredients of all the ones that are actually socialism, not just the ones that call themselves socialists. That's it. Anything else you hear about socialism was probably lies just told to you by the capitalists who hate it, by the dictators who want to pretend they're in favor of it, and by the would-be dictators who would scare the shit out of you, so you will identify with their greedy capitalist agenda. Now, I'm not saying that capitalists have no place in a vibrant economy. I mean, they make great luxuries. But we have been convinced by these besooted succubi that we are nothing without them, that profit and riches are the noblest objects of pursuit, that worker equals stupid, and that a united working class is the greatest threat to freedom since, well, ever. Well, until we can proudly stand up and say that we are members of the working class, you know, the ones who make sure the gears of our society turn, and without whom we would starve to death. The ones who actually take care of us when we're sick or in our old age. The ones who keep us from being naked and stupid by making clothes and teaching us. The ones who, us, each of us, all of us, workers. Until we can be proud to be us, we will always be prey to the machinations of those who would use us, be swayed by the propaganda that separates us, divided by those who fear us organized, and scattered by those who know that the workers, united, cannot be defeated. So, workers, celebrate this day and admit that most frightening of things, that you are in the working class. Give yourself permission to rejoice in yourself and your fellow workers. Find joy in unity and reject the lie that the greatest threat to the workers united is, somehow, the workers united. Only the enemies of the workers would despise a united working class, just as enemies of democracy despise free and fair elections. So, here, in the birthplace of International Workers' Day, where countless workers benefit from the blood and struggle of the countless workers before them. Here, where we have daily evidence from executive bonuses to foreclosures to mega mansions to homelessness to golden parachutes to offshore factories to collapsing mines to oil spills, evidence of the greed of the elite and the misery it causes. Here, where that same elite have convinced so many of us that when times get tough, it is the organizations of the workers that are to blame. That when a factory moves overseas, it's the unions, it's the workers, it's our fault, it's your fault, rather than their own insatiable greed. And finally, here, where a century of fighting for safer, fairer working conditions and an empowered working class, we still have workers who obediently denigrate those who fight for them. Workers who despise their fellow workers because they have a different accent, a different skin color, because they live lives different from them, or because they're from a different country. Because after all our struggles, we still have workers who identify with the rich. Here is where we need May Day the most. So this May Day, be revolutionary. At least once, say to someone, even if that person is yourself, I am a worker. And proud of it. Cast off the brainwashing that denies you are that highest and noblest of persons, a citizen worker. This May Day, take pride in the fact that you live by your own skill and talent and brains and brawn. Be glad you don't benefit from underpaying your employees or pay your bills with money made from the sweat of somebody else's brow. Be glad that you're not a mere capitalist living parasitically off others. This May Day and every May Day, be proud that you are a worker. And if you also want to go out into the woods in the middle of the night, light a bonfire, and have a hot pagan orgy, do that as a proud worker too. Happy International Workers' Day.